Welcome to Know Before You Go for the 6th Sunday of Easter. We're moving right along, Pentecost to come in a couple weeks. Today is also, however, Mother's Day. So let us keep very much in mind those women who have served us so well, without whom we would not be who we are. Let us say thank you to them. Actually, our readings today for the 6th Sunday of Easter are very fitting also for Mother's Day, because they are about love and friendship. We're reading from the Gospel according to John, and our second reading is the first letter of John. And in that letter, it is written as, God is love, the most succinct statement in the New Testament making that point, although it's made in many ways, in other ways, in the other writings of the New Testament. God is love. God cannot not love. We are to model our lives after that. We too are called to be people who love. And thus in our gospel text, the gospel says, love one another as I have loved you. Love one another. That's the heart of the matter. It sets the bar high. It's not an easy thing, because Jesus also says, love one another as I have loved you. In other words, there's really no limit that we should set. We could also ask, though, what is the kind of love of which the gospel speaks, of which the whole of the New Testament speaks? What kind of love? Sometimes it's referred to using the Greek word agape, meaning a very profound, self-sacrificing love. But it's also a passionate love. It's a love whereby God gives of his whole self. God so loved us, he sent his only begotten Son into the world, the Gospel of John also says. So when Jesus says, love one another, it's really with a sense of give yourself to others. Give yourself over. Keep them in mind. But then he says, love one another as I have loved you. And we know the extent to which Jesus' love went because he died on the cross. So the first message for today is simply making us very aware that we are to love each other. Let us love each other. But then as Jesus continues, there is a particular kind of love to which he refers, and that is the love of friendship, because he says, you are my friends. So love one another as I have loved you. But then he goes on to say, you are my friends, not servants, but you are my friends. We are called into a relationship of friendship with God, of friendship with Christ. He tells us a little about why he uses that word. He uses it because he says, I have told you everything I've learned or heard from the Father. In other words, I've not held back in any way. So we can ask the question, well, what is love? What is the kind of love of which the New Testament speaks? But we can also say, what is friendship? Because it is a very unique, distinctive form of love. There is love of neighbor, love of the poor. There is the love that we are called upon to love our enemies. All of this is that self-sacrificing living for the sake of someone else. But at the same time, when we think of friendship, there is a kind of mutuality, a kind of intimacy, a way of coming out of the depths of who we are, of a willingness to share, be vulnerable. We don't hold back, we trust. All of those are aspects of what the kind of love Jesus speaks about is. If we just move aside from that for a moment and think about parental love, the love of a mother or a father for the children, this is what we tend to expect, that somehow that maternal love is a total self-giving. It's a turning one's life over to be there for those who need me in their vulnerability. It's a willingness to share. As parental, it's not immediately a love of friendship, although it may develop into that, whereby mother or father develops friendship with their children. But we are expected to love God, Christ, with that kind of friendship. If you think for a moment of someone in your life who's most special to you, whom you really do love as a friend, and even there we can use that word friend often too widely. We think in terms of social media, befriending someone, but friendship is really very limited to those several people, maybe only one or two at times, with whom we are able to totally trust, be ourselves in God's presence. And that is what Jesus is asking us to have in terms of our love for each other, but also in terms of our love for Him, our love for God. So I think as we ponder in this Gospel of John, as is so often the case, where he speaks about the importance of love in our lives, Christ-like love, to take some of those words that are so characteristic of friendship. Trust, opening myself up, having a mutual relationship in which there's a kind of mutual sharing, someone in whose presence, in whose context, I can be so completely myself, someone apart from whom I'm not really who I am, someone with whom I might be helps me to be really who I am. So whether we think here, again, of the relationship, the love that a mother has for her daughter or son, whether we think of our own relationships, brothers, sisters, but friends in our lives, or of how we are called into friendship with God, we come back to the text in which Christ says, love one another. Elsewhere in that first letter of John, he says, don't tell me you love the one you don't see if you don't love those you do see. So it begins with our love for each other, our love of friendship, that self-giving kind of love. And once we experience that in human life, that is also the kind of love that God desires for us to have with Himself. We too then need to call God our friend, just as we call others in our lives our friends. Let us learn to love one another. Thank you and enjoy this day.